So there are stories of people who go through this hellish experience, and it is, for artists, quite hellish. I think politicians are probably used to getting flack and used to getting criticised, and it's by nature they're either loved or hated, or usually just hated. But musicians, artists aren't used to that experience. So for them, it's very traumatising.
And it's not part of the day job.
It's not part of the day job at all. It is part of the day job to challenge people. It is part of the day job to try and make them think. And so with Rosie and her production, she was intentional about choosing things which are going to make us think about these problems that we as a society are thinking about in different ways.
And I guess the examples that we've spoken about, you don't really have musicians, your peers speaking out. So we see it in comedy, and part of that is because, of course, in comedy, you have to get up, you have to perform a set, and so sometimes that material is going to be controversial. I guess if you're a musician, you don't necessarily have to express your views increasingly, and I know this as someone who used to interview a lot of musicians. Increasingly, musicians are choosing not to give interviews. I've spoken to people like Ed Sheeran about this, that they think soon musicians will just be too scared to give any interviews because they know that one line can be extrapolated and used on the internet to try and cancel them. So is your message to, I guess, your peers to speak up more, or can you understand why they're so terrified sometimes?
I don't think people really care, particularly when it comes to an election, about what actors and musicians think that they should vote for.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Having said that, short of telling people how to vote, discussing the issues, I think, is fine. They're parts of society just as much as anyone else.
Yeah, they don't want to be preached to, but I think when it comes to culture is absolutely set by celebrity. And if we're only hearing one set of arguments from celebrity, which tend to be, the very woke, the very liberal arguments, then that does help to set a culture.
Well, actually, a lot of these musicians, they will happily on stage talk politics at length sometimes, but those are progressive politics that usually aren't going to get them into trouble. So they might say F Trump or rally against Israel.
Or Roe v. Wade, for example.
Well, exactly, and those aren't issues that...
That's acceptable because it's what the MSM and the liberal elite believe.
Or even creative industries on whole are progressives. Even those getting cancelled now are progressives. Dave Chappelle's a progressive. I'm a liberal. Rosie Kay, again, she comes from the left. This world, it's not got conservatives, particularly in it. I mean, there are some conservatives, but generally not many.